Welcome back. So it's our final session on the climate action stage, and we're going to catch up with our data study group. Before we do, I want to make sure that you join us at 4 p.m. on the conversation stage, where all of the MCs across all of the different stages at this event will gather together to reflect on how the whole event has gone, so don't miss that. Now, in this session, you're going to hear from representatives discussing how different disciplines and experience levels have come together to work towards a common purpose. What was surprising? What did they discover? And how did they work together? Well, we're going to find out. Your session host is B. Costa Gomez, and she is currently a postdoctoral research associate at the Alan Turing Institute and a science communicator who also hosts the Turing podcast and participates in stand-up. Now, I'm sure she'll be really funny, but also really interesting. So it's over to you, B.
Well, thank you. Now I feel super awkward. What if I'm not funny? And then it's going to be complaints all the time. But hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the DSG showcase. Data study groups are collaborative hackathons and sprint research style events. So you get a bunch of researchers from different stages in their career, and they get together and they tackle a challenge together. So they tackle real world challenges coming from real world data, coming from real world organizations. Try saying that 3 times very quickly. It's very difficult. So I have participated in them in the past. I've been a participant, but also I've been a PI, and I'm very happy to be hosting here today. So this is a very unique way of doing research and specializing in the interdisciplinary collaboration. So this session today aims to give you a flavor of what it's like to participate in the DSG and to inspire you to get involved if you would like. And all morning we had almost 100 volunteer researchers that were taking in this little tiny DSG event that we had for today. Each group has been looked after by a facilitator and have been working on one task. And we're going to be joined by a handful of facilitators who have been supporting the groups. And we're going to hear from them and also from one of the participants herself that is in here with me. So what was it that they were doing today? So the participants were tasked with analyzing a series of data sets referring to the climate, relating to the climate. And I was just thinking that we're in the climate stage, so if it wasn't, that would have been shocking. But it's a series of data sets related to the climate, generating observations relating for climate change. So climate change is a pressing issue to which the data science can inform solutions to and promote the science for social good agenda. So the data sets cover a range of topics, and they are all publicly available. So our participants worked with CO2 levels, temperature changes, prediction of sea level changes, and climate change sentiment data. So if you fancy having a go at it yourselves, you're going to find a link in the chat, and as well as a notebook and the access to the data. If you're interested in participating as a challenge owner, as a participant, as a facilitator, as a PI, please also join the DSG mailing list or visit our website. And all the links are going to be in the chat, I hope. So, cool. I hope we have all of the online facilitators, and we're going to hear from 2 of them. We're going to hear from Charlie and from Anna. They're going to tell us how their sessions went today. So if Charlie, you can go first.
Thank you, Bay. Hopefully you can see my screen now. I was in group 1. We had a really excellent session. I think everyone really learned something. We enjoyed the experience, and I was really surprised about how the collaborative environment worked so well, given the fact that it was remote and there was 8 people, all who had never met each other before, but worked really well together. As you can see, we actually made quite a lot of progress. We only had 3 hours in total, but really an overwhelming amount of progress. We created some visualizations, which we'll come to in more detail at the end of this slide. So to begin with, we started off with a brainstorming session once everyone had introduced themselves. And given there was a few different data sets, we kind of converged to decide to look at the sentiment analysis, which was a data set of tweets related to climate change that were coded to be either in support or in support that climate change is real or in raising doubt about climate change. And following this, we thought it'd be interesting to try and create some word clouds, which you can see on the right, we did manage to do, to try and categorize which words tend to show up in the tweets that were for or against the idea of climate change. And also we wanted to try and clean the data to some degree, because there was a lot of URLs and that sort of thing in the tweets, which weren't really necessarily related to sentiment. So to achieve this, we split into 2 subgroups, which worked really well. Within each subgroup, we had one person who was sharing their screen and actually writing code live with everyone else, giving them feedback. That worked really well, actually. It was surprising to me how useful it was for kind of live debugging. If you make a mistake in the code, then someone can point it out and you can solve errors quite quickly that way. We suggested, I think in the actual data study groups, they tend to have more of a shared document type situation, so everyone can contribute code and work together in that way. Given we had such a short time scale, there's obviously much more we could have done with the data. There was more cleaning we could have done. There was better machine learning models we could have applied. And we also looked at maybe we could get more data, because I think we had about 20,000 or so tweets. And obviously there's much more data available in terms of Twitter. Okay, so to go on to talk about what we actually did, we split into 2 groups. One of them was focusing on cleaning the data, and one of them was working on building the code for these word clouds. To clean the data, we removed things like usernames, links. A lot of them had this RT, which we realized was to describe a retweet. So we didn't need that for sentiment analysis. We also applied stemming and lemmatization, which is a technique for natural language processing to reduce words to kind of the core word. So for example, organized or organizing would both reduce down to organize through lemmatization. We also removed some of the tweets which weren't for or against climate change. They were neutral or just factual, which were coded at 0 or 2. And we balanced the data sets. So to begin with, we had way more tweets that had a positive sentiment than negative, and that was skewing the machine learning models. So we downsampled the positive group, so we had a balanced data set. Following all those improvements, we improved the accuracy of the machine learning models from a baseline. And we improved the lower levels of the precision and recall, which are ways of measuring kind of false positives versus false negatives. Going on to these word cloud visualizations, I think we can point out some interesting things here. So you can see at the top here, this is the word cloud for people who are tweeting in support of climate change action, essentially. And a few words sort of jump out. We have denier, Trump, and real. So we think there's like a little bit of political rivalry here with people who are pro-positive, pro-climate change or pro-climate change action, talking about Trump supporters and deniers. And we'll see the same thing with the negative groups. We have words like Obama, scam, hoax, and liberal, which is quite instructive, I think. Yeah, so overall, it was a really good session. And I think, we want to thank all the participants. And I'll hand it back to you, Bay.
From Anna.
Allow me to share my screen quickly. Yeah, so it's very interesting because we also actually chose to work with the same kind of data as Charlie's team. And basically our ambition was to look into this data and try to envision how we could in principle create climate consciousness using Twitter. We were group 9, and this is the list of the team members of our group. And I wanted to start with actually how our team looked like. So we were quite of a diverse team in terms of backgrounds. We had several computer scientists or software engineers, but actually we had diverse background, including even a lawyer that I never thought before that I would be working in a team with, which was actually a very interesting experience. And we had different levels in the coding expertise so far in our careers, and we're also from different career stages. And here you can see us still at the end of our hacking session. We're still smiling quite a lot, which indicates, yeah, it's a positive experience in general. And the approach we followed, in principle, we use the same data as Charlie nicely introduced, which saves me time here. So these were Twitter data that had an indication about how people feel when tweeting about climate change, a positive, neutral, negative, or these tweets were factual. And then we decided to kind of follow two approaches. First of all, to analyze patterns of word co-occurrence, for example. And second of all, we thought, yeah, these data are not enough, right? Let's take them a step further. So actually we enhanced our data set using TweePy, that apparently is a Python library for handling Twitter data, in order to expand our data set and acquire knowledge about who tweets, where these tweets are coming from, what is the outreach of each tweet, how many times they've been retweeted. And by using these 2 points here, what we thought we could, in the future, we didn't reach this point, we could build a model that could inform policy formation. So yeah, how these tweets or how Twitter in general could be used in order to form policies, but also how to define awareness campaigns about climate change. Although there are several bottlenecks here that we kind of identified, of course, missing data, false positives, that these tweets might have, we don't know how accurate the data we have are. Of course, the time limit, considering that we only had 3 hours, to work on this data, and many other bottlenecks that potentially we didn't encounter today. And on a subset on the data, what we started seeing in principle by looking into the sentiment of these tweets, a very nice example we started seeing is that the more positive the tweet sentiment, the more the retweet counts, but then the reply count kind of anti-correlated, but of course this is only the subset of data and indicates what we could do as a whole. And yeah, we split our data as well as non-believers and believers, and we excluded stop words and subject words. And then we started seeing, similarly to what Charlie presented to us, kind of words that occurred. And yeah, we thought these tweets are rather politically heavy and socially heavy, and independent on whether these tweets are positive or negative. Some of the words like Trump keep occurring. Yes, so that was the first step we did. And then we also, we believe that this is an approach that could inform potentially, I don't know, we could know what believers, what is their background, where they come from, what are their beliefs, and kind of form different campaigns. But also we use a question answering model that you can see here which one we use. We actually played a bit around, so it was a rather fun session. And we asked our data, the data we were given, what do you think about global warming? And the model returned to us that global warming is a lie. And then we asked the data again, why is climate change a lie? And first of all, the answer was that it's freezing outside, and that these tweets were more scared of clowns, which indicates that this data might potentially need some cleaning in order to be used more accurately. Yes, so with that, I would like to thank again our team and you for listening. Thank you.
Same data from two groups, but because the set of people were so different, you looked into different things and you had different paths to go through this. So it's really interesting. And also, who isn't more scared than clowns than climate change? I'm kidding. Sorry. Anyway, now we're going to go for a few questions. So we're going to join our other facilitators as well. We also have with us Timothy, Isabella, and Seth. So hopefully we can just have a discussion. And I have a question for you, some questions for you guys. Like, my first question is, how did your group actually harness each other's expertise and take advantage of it? And I'm going to start by asking Isabella.
Wonderful, thank you very much. What I found really interesting about my group was how language was used. And first of all, the language that we speak. I noticed that we had a large variety of disciplines in my group as well, and that some disciplines had words that were expressing particular aspects of the data. And because they had words for that, they could maybe recognize those things more quickly, whereas people from other disciplines didn't spot those immediately. And there was a lot of translation going on between people, between different disciplines, despite all speaking English. And on the other hand, the language also really related to me to the different coding languages. We had people, I think, simultaneously working in 3 different languages on the very same data set that they shared over a 4th service. So how everyone could bring aspects of their work to this challenge was really quite impressive to me. So language was really something that was important for me and my group throughout this challenge.
Thank you so much. That's so interesting. How about we hear from another group, maybe Tim?
So yeah, thank you very much. And that's really an eye-opening experience, seeing a group with 8 people from across disciplines coming to the same group and solving the same kind of challenge. And it's kind of like a sprint challenge that we call it, since it lasted for several hours. But we have handled some really strong messages to communicate about the climate crisis that we are facing, and how crucial it is for us to move forward to reduce emissions and so on. So I think to me, the domain of scientific context knowledge is crucial for the interpretation of data. So we are really happy to have somebody with some theoretical background so that they could be informing us about the context of the data. But on the other hand, there are also some really hardcore computer scientists who are able to bring us through the coding and also wrangle around the data into the right format, so that we could not only analyze the data, but also to communicate the message behind the data. So with a climate science background and coming from a career of capacity building of climate change, I really can't find a better way than this to raise awareness of climate change across disciplines. So to sum it up, it's really an eye-opening experience.
Thank you so much. It definitely is. And finally, Seth, do you want to tell us about your experience in your group?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks everyone. This is pretty great. I mean, in our group, the major thing was people are from very different backgrounds, so different locations. So the one thing that we couldn't know from the data is what is not there in the data. So in our group, people are from different countries. And when we see that certain countries, the CO2 level is high or low, so people were attributing it to their country specific things, which is not available in the data. So that was very interesting. And the most important thing that I myself learned was when we joined a meeting, like in our group, since there was like a lot of people, and like I had to understand like what people are feeling about the data and like how they are feeling. So instead of defining the task, when we asked people, basically like, how do you feel about the climate change? There was like amazing opinions from people. And that was much beyond the data that we had in our hand. That helped us fine tune, like people were like, CO2 could lead to sea level, CO2 could lead to temperature, temperature could lead to sea level. So there were inter-data dependencies. And again, like we saw, like there was someone who was saying that OSPOL was a word in the sentiment data set that was retweeted or tweeted a lot. So we were like, the bushfire that happened at that particular time was the reason for this retweet happening. So such very interesting demographic and behavioral policies we were able to understand, and that was very eye-opening for us. And as all of my colleagues mentioned here, this is a very wonderful experience. If I would have done it on my own, I would have taken like 10 days to pretty much do this, but this was amazing, and I would definitely like look forward to it. Thank you.
There's nothing like stressing a bunch of scientists for a few hours than to get like the actual results out of it and get everyone to work together and be forced into working together. So now this is, if any of you want to answer this, please just put your hand up because I can see that. But if not, I'll just select one of you. But I was wondering if there were any surprise applications of the expertise of any of this expertise that you saw into this project. So if there was anything that you didn't expect and that you were quite surprised that that you managed to do. Okay, no, okay, cool. Seth, you can go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So in my group, I think one thing that we observed is there was someone from a transport engineering background who wasn't into coding, who wasn't into Python, any of this, but they were from completely transport engineering background. So when they joined, it was more like what they can contribute, what they can learn. But they came up with a very interesting perspective of like how electric vehicles could sort of contribute to this climate change. At the same time, like how globalization, different markets, different countries trying to produce cars and how they go and everything, how that could contribute to the CO2 emissions and several things. So initially when we started, we weren't very sure about how it would end within the 3 hours, but we got some interesting results saying that electric vehicles had like good contribution. The number of vehicles were increasing, but electric vehicles when it contribute like CO2 emissions were decreasing. So their transport engineering background, they came up with the engine, fuel, how it could contribute and everything. So that was very interesting observation that augmented to the data and helped us understand better. So this anti-disciplinary or other cross-disciplinary way of solving the problem was very interesting.
That is so cool. What about you, Tim? I saw your hand up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, that's a really nice question to answer to. And obviously, as Sam has just mentioned about the different disciplines, kind of the cross-disciplinarity of the climate change issue, that every sector needs to fight against it. And on the other hand, what I observed, which is most inspiring, is the different kinds of data analysis tools that each of us have been able to work on based on their background and expertise, including some linear analysis and also perhaps some non-linear ways of analyzing the data, such as using an emulator. So I think they are kind of different ways to both analyze and also to interpret the data that perhaps would be able to give us a whole picture of how our climate crisis is going to play on both on the scientific and also at the policy side.
Thank you so much. How about you, Anna? How did you find, any surprising things? You mentioned that there was a lawyer.
Yeah, so actually our team was quite diverse. I guess like every team here actually, it's very nice. And we at some point split kind of in the different rooms, and we were kind of in a room discussing more the legal directions and the social background and how we could actually implement these things in a model. And I never thought that when I would sign up for a hackathon or a data study group that these were things that first of all I would think about, but second I would even end up thinking of ways to implement them into code, right? So this was something quite surprising for me, and I think also it's quite important to do so, because we need more of this communication of different disciplines.
That's exactly what the DSG is for, right? Like to get this cross-disciplinary. How about you, Charlie? Do you have any insights into surprising things from your group?
Yeah, well, I was actually surprised. It kind of goes along with what everyone else was saying. Isabella was talking about people using different language and different terms and across disciplines. And that really was an opportunity for people to learn and to share knowledge. As someone used a term that someone wasn't familiar with, they could then explain that term. And just knowing, like, if you wanted to learn about machine learning, it's quite intimidating thing to learn about. But if someone's there who's saying, oh, we should use a random forest, and someone can say, oh, what's a random forest? And someone explains it to you. It's very like organic and very effective way of learning cross-disciplinarily, I think.
Thank you. And finally, Isabella, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, thank you. What I found quite intriguing was just the data management side of things. So we were all sat across the UK or even further, and yet we were all working on the very same data, and someone was adding this and someone was cleaning up that. So it was really intriguing to see how the collaboration happened on one data set that was shared across and then over Zoom. So this side of things that we've all gotten so used to over the last 2 years was really quite interesting to see how incredibly good we actually had gotten.
That is a very important point. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, like we can get anyone participating. And actually in some of the DSGs that I've participated, we had people in completely different time zones. And the DSG online was for a couple of weeks. And so we had to like have meetings at random times of day that you wouldn't expect to have a meeting so that we could accommodate for someone in the other side of the world, which is always great. But we've had a lot from the facilitators. Now I'm going to ask my partner in here in the studio. I'm going to ask Aditi for her to tell us a little bit about her experience as a participant. So first of all, who should attend and why they should attend? How has the DSG impacted you? Because you've participated in DSGs before, and you also participated today, but you've been to the online full thing, right? So how has it impacted you? Who should participate?
So I think anyone who is eager to learn will want to participate in this one and who's open to ideas and learning different perspectives. One thing, and many people who would want to think of creative ways of approaching a problem. And being in this kind of collaborative environment, it really brings out the best out of everybody because we kind of learn about each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we kind of work on that, and we try to make the best of it. And what impacted me the most was that apart from gaining academic and communicative skills, I have also developed on my interpersonal skills while doing the DSG. And it is really important in any kind of workplace, right? Well, another thing which really helped me was the fact that how appreciative the challenge owners and the DSG team were. Like at some point we didn't make that many progress, but we were always supported by them. And this kind of supportive attitude and open-mindedness really helps us. And most of all about the way they see failures. They see failures as a positive thing, and they would always prompt us to try different things, and that would encourage us to look into new things, try different things, explore more. So that really helped me. And it was reflected in our work, in the flexibility and the open-mindedness was reflected in our work.
But that is so cool. And also, exactly, failures are just a new step, right?
Exactly, yeah.
We have a really high underrepresentation of failures in science. So if we could actually know how much scientists actually fail, and this we have like a crash course into how difficult it is to do a project. Yeah. So what are your top tips if someone wants to participate in a DSG or a DSG-style event and actually maximize what they can get out of the event?
The very first thing I would like to tell them is be transparent about their work, and all the team members should be aware of their progresses and blockades. That way we can help each other out as well, right? And every person in the group will be should be given a chance, and they should respect each other's opinions, ideas, and perspectives. So people should feel comfortable about explaining their opinion and how they see the problem and devise their way in. And the most thing I would say is that the reporting is very important. Like everything, like I mentioned, the failures were also something we wanted to document, right? So whatever worked and whatever didn't work are equally important, because that way we are also telling other researchers that what we worked in and why we did that and how it impacted to our outcomes.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to see as well from the participants that this is such a good perspective on two things. I just want to say first that we still have a little bit of time. So if anyone wants to ask, anyone that is watching us wants to ask a question, you can just pop it into Slido and I will see it here on my, not on my lap, on my iPad, because my legs don't have Android things yet. Anyway, so I'm going to just open the discussion for all of us here, because we've all been, you guys participated today, and although the report is such a good point, because you guys had it for today for 3 hours, but imagine working for a week and then we forget what we failed on or what we worked on 2 weeks ago. So I don't remember what I've had for breakfast, so let alone the things that I've made a mistake. So that's an awesome point. How about you facilitators? Because you are participants as well. You are participants that basically, as a facilitator, you communicate with the team. So is there any top tip that you would like to give to anyone that would want to participate in a DSG in the future? Isabella.
I think it already came through from what we said, but any experience and any domain expertise is something that can contribute to a DSG. Even if you yourself maybe can't see straight away from the problem description, that range and diversity of experience is exactly what makes a DSG what it is. So any range of expertise is precisely what you need at the data study group.
That is an excellent point. As Anna's mentioned, that they ended up discussing things that they didn't expect, right? That's what brings the best in the DSG, is that you end up having the best discussions about, and with people that you wouldn't have met otherwise. There's a couple of, do any of you want to say anything else? Any other tip? Any other, oh, Tim, yes.
Yeah, just want to briefly say that I think one of the emphasis of the DSG is tackling real-world challenges. So we are coming together from different expertise as we emphasize the interdisciplinarity of these challenges. Not only on the climate change and environmental issues that we looked at this afternoon, but also I'm seeing on, if you go to the DSG web page, you'll be seeing all sorts of global challenges that you'll be interested in working. And I think that's one of the core aspects of the success of the DSG, I'd say. And of course, as a facilitator, I also learned a lot from everybody's expertise.
Thank you. That is a very, very good point as well. Do you have any more things to add? Because in that case, I'm going to move on to the first question. And the question is, can we continue to work with the data to produce insights? So I will take this one, because actually when you do, the point of the DSG is the continuation of the work afterwards. So even though today was just a short 3-hour, just injection of a DSG, the idea of having the challenge owners participate and having the PIs and everything is so that the work does continue and does have results. And from past DSGs, there have been a lot of actual things that have come out of it and solutions that have come out to the problems that these challenge owners brought to us. So I hope that answers your question. So I have a question, and the second question now. It's for anyone that wants to answer, because it's, how intense was the project? How intense do you actually find it? And what is your advice if someone is still a student and wants, in this case, master student, but also wants to participate in the DSG. So if, okay, Anna, yes.
Sorry. So I also participated in a 2-week DSG before, and today was the 3-hour version, the short one. I think it's quite intense for multiple reasons. It's a new field, and you are very motivated to work on it and get something nice out of it in a short time. And yeah, you although no one pressures you to work on it, right? So the motivation comes mostly from the team, but it's totally worth it, like for educational purposes, and also for I don't know, for confidence, from coming out of your cell and for getting to know new disciplines, skills. It's even if you have to work on a week now that it's in person, a project on something else, I think it totally pays off in the end. I don't know if this answer, so short answer, it can be intense if you want it to be intense, but it's worth it.
And it's a week or a week in person, max 2 weeks, right? So it's not, hopefully you can time manage around it. Do any of you want to say anything else for now? If not, we can go to the next questions, which I think it's just asking, how do you evaluate the candidates who apply and what's the best to prepare? So you've been accepted into this one. Do you have any tips for people that want to apply and that want to participate, and what level of experience is needed? You want to go? Yeah.
Well, I would say, like I mentioned, that the people who are eager to learn, they will get a chance. So as long as you show your eagerness to learn and you're open to different ideas, because well, you will have an intense week or two, so you need to be mentally prepared for that, and also you need to enjoy that time. So I would say just go for it.
Yes. Do any of you want to add anything else? Because if not, we might start wanting to. I don't know if there's any more questions. No, I didn't see any more questions popping up. Is there any final comments that you would like to make before I close the session? Do you want to say no? Sorry, I have to look because you guys are on the screen here. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking part. Thank you so much for participating, also here and chatting with us and giving your face to actually come out and talk about the experience that we've had today. But I also want to thank the DSG team that is behind the scenes and has been doing all of this, and we're so organized, and this is amazing, the fact that they could manage to organize a hackathon for 3 hours and everything went so smoothly, and we can have great results because the team worked so hard behind the scenes. So thank you to them as well. And we hope this gives you an insight into the unique DSG way of working, and we hope that you actually want to participate with us, and actually next time you want to be either as any of the roles that are available, you actually want to join us. But if you do, please, the links are going to be in the chat. Visit the website. There's the mailing list. There's a lot of ways that you can contact and get in touch and actually know when things are going to happen. And actually, a very, very, very important thing is that there is going to be an in-person DSG happening, and the applications are now opening. So it's going to be in collaboration with the University of Birmingham. And there's going to be an in-person DSG after, this pandemic that has been going on. So it's quite exciting that we get to do this in person as well. And yeah, if there's no more comments to say, I'm going to finish the session and just pop for a chat and just any questions and participate. Thank you.